I'll have another whole discussion about relief and why I don't like relief and all that kind of thing. But essentially, let's go through it real quick, okay? If you don't want to listen to me talk about neck relief, you can go ahead and skip out of here. But I will show you why I don't like neck relief, and we'll do that right now, okay? A lot of people think, first of all, that you need a neck relief so that the string can vibrate in between here. That's not true because your string doesn't vibrate like a clothesline. It doesn't vibrate from here to here, so that the point of maximum amplitude is not in the middle of the string. So if you've got a nut and a saddle, halfway point is at the 12th fret. So even if it did vibrate like that, the point of maximum amplitude would be here at the 12th fret, and yet all the relief is over here in the middle of the neck. So if this string is vibrating at its maximum point right here, the relief in here doesn't do anything. But that's not the way a string vibrates. So it's a bad analogy. It's a bad point. You've got the point wrong. What happens is you hit the string here, and this is still open. So it's at the nut, at the saddle, and you hit the string here, and what it does is sets up nodes depending on how far away from the bridge saddle you are. So it takes this node and basically sets that node into action right here. Okay? So what you have is a node going from this distance roughly. So let's measure it with my finger here. So that's about 4 inches basically. It's just coming to about right there. I'm going to go to right there. So you got a node going from the nut to about the 3rd fret, and then from the 3rd fret to about the 6th fret, the 6th fret to the 9th fret, and so on up the neck. So you've got nodes going like this. Okay? So your point of maximum amplitude is still going to be here in the middle, but because they're shallow nodes, they're waves. This straight neck doesn't make any difference. That's only if you have an open string. As soon as you pet the 3rd fret here, now you have a shorter string, and this node is going to be that same distance there. And this is just rough. You know, this is not, I'm roughing out the mathematics for you here. So if I hit it at 3.5 inches here, let's just call it 3 to make it easy. I've got this distance here, and I'm going about 3 inches. I've got a node to here, I've got a node to here, I've got a node to here, and I've got a node up here, which doesn't make any difference because there's no frets. So I've got shallower nodes going on here, none of which are in the depth of the neck right here. All right, so you might as well have a flat neck because your point of maximum amplitude is always going to be up here past the 12th fret, and yet the relief has effect between basically the 2nd fret and this fret. The relief won't have much effect at all right here because the neck can't bend there, and it doesn't have any effect right here because you've got this massive heel right here, and that's definitely not going to bend. So in effect, really, the truss rod is going to start working at about right here and about right here, and its maximum point is going to be somewhere right in here. So if you have relief, the maximum relief is going to be somewhere in about the 5th to the 7th fret, middle of the neck. Okay, that's why. It won't have much effect here at all. It'll have no effect right here, and it gets less and less. So you've got this dip in the middle of the neck right here. All right, now, that's all fine and well. But the problem, let's finish one more thing about the nodes. This is a good example to demonstrate the nodes. We all know, for instance, that if you strike a string back here close to the bridge, right here, you get a different tone than you do if you strike it up here. Do you know why you get a different tone? You get a different tone because the nodes are different. So when you strike it back here at the bridge, it It's this distance right here that you're striking it at. So it sets up more shallower nodes, and that's why you get a higher pitched tone. It's the nodes that are controlling the tone. When you strike it up here, you get bigger nodes, and you can see the string vibrating more when you do that. When you do it here, it's much shallower. You can see the string doing this. It's a tighter because there's more shallower nodes. When you go up here, big vibration, and that's because there's fewer bigger nodes. So, in order to reduce your buzzing situation, play with the lower action, you can play closer to the bridge, and you get a brighter tone, but you also get lower nodes, and you can play with the lower action. And that's why Tony Rice, the bluegrass flat picker, the best bluegrass flat picker, you always play bluegrass pretty much in between here. And the reason for that is you can play harder, you can play with a lower action, plus the tone's better, and it cuts through. When you play up here, you get this floppy, loose tone with these big nodes waving up and down, okay? So that's a little bit more on the nodes. Now, your point of maximum amplitude is going to be always, even from an open string, is going to be always up more around the 12th fret. So the relief back here doesn't do anything towards giving the string more room to vibrate. The maximum vibration is still up in here. The instant you fret the note at the 3rd fret, that point moves up to here. Now you're over the fingerboard, and the relief has absolutely nothing to do with anything anymore. If you come up to the 5th fret, it moves even farther. Now you're up in here, in this area, and the relief is nothing, okay? So, you really need a flat neck. You can also demonstrate this, especially on a banjo or electric guitar where you have more neck to work with. Like I said, there's no relief going on right here because all the relief happens up here. The truss rod has no effect at all from here because of the heel in the way and then the body. So what do you do when you come up here and play? You see, you don't have any relief at all. It's flat. Now, on the Martin guitar like this, the fingerboard drops off, and we're going to get to that in just a second, just why it drops off and why that drop off, again, is another reason you don't need relief. But if you play up in here, and this is definitely much more visible on a banjo, where you can get up in there, and an electric guitar where it is not drop off, but the neck continues on. So on an electric guitar, like a Telecaster, Stratocaster, something like that, you do a lot of playing up in here, and the fingerboard is flat. It's on the body. There's no relief whatsoever. So you're playing on a flat fingerboard from the 12th fret, which is halfway, all the way up into here. So remember, the reason I say it's halfway, from the nut to the saddle, the 12th fret is the halfway. So on an electric guitar, you've got half your neck up above the point where the relief has an effect. So that means you're playing on a flat neck up in there, or one that has a little bit of drop off even. You don't need relief up in here because it's a shorter distance from here to here. You're playing here anyways, and the nodes are much smaller. Okay? So, the second thing that the relief does here is the fact that your neck is on the body at an angle. Let's get this over here and take a look at this now. I'm going to weight this sandbag right here to keep the guitar from falling off the bench. Your neck, this is the neck of the guitar, and there it is, flat and straight on the body. Okay? It's coming straight across the body, and there's a flat neck. But your neck is not like that. If it was, then your relief would pull this ruler up like this, and you would have relief right here. And that would be fine. Your string from here to here would clear, and you would have more clearance. But that's not the way it works. The way it works is your neck is on the body at about a 2-degree angle. So I'm going to exaggerate a little bit here. And here's your neck. And now what happens when you have relief is it doesn't really pull up. What happens is it compresses like this. You see, I'm compressing this thing. So it'd be wonderful if it came up like this, but it doesn't. It goes and it compresses. So when it compresses, what happens now, let's do this. This is the body. This is the nut. When you fret a string down into the middle of this big hole, that string has to come up and has to clear this rise right here, which a lot of people call the 14th fret hump, and it's really not a 14th fret hump. It's too much relief in your neck. So as you pull that relief out of here, now the string has a straight path in which to clear that body. But if you compress this down like this and you fret down into this hole, your string is going to have to come up, clear this. So when you're fretting around into this area here in the middle of the neck, you're going to get buzzes right up in here. And I guarantee this happens because I've measured it about 12,000 million times. And I have demonstrated, I should have demonstrated it here, but it's a small thing. It's hard to get on camera. If I increase the relief in this neck by loosening the truss rod, we can run this straight edge down the neck, which I do all the time in videos, and trying to show you the drop off here. And you will see that the nut does not change. You would expect more relief. You would expect that nut to come up, and it doesn't. It compresses. All right? I've demonstrated that many times to myself. I've also got this example to tell you. So, first of all, you want a flat neck. The only reason that you really want any relief at all is because if the humidity increases dramatically, this fingerboard is going to swell up and it's going to cause the neck to back bow. This is a back bow. This is a bow relief like that, and then this is a back bow like this. So like this, your nut's down below here, and that's going to cause buzzes. When you fret here, it's going to buzz in the middle of the neck. And you don't want that to happen. So the only reason that you need any relief at all, really, is so that you can tell that you don't have a back bow, because the back bow will cause you problems. Now, some players like to have that feel of bounce. They like to fight the guitar, basically. I definitely do not like to fight the guitar. I want the guitar to be super easy playing, and I don't want to fight it. But some players, if you get Dan Erlewine's book on electric guitars and guitar setup, he has gone in and measured the relief of a lot of pro players, and so have I. But I'm giving you his book as a reference. And B.B. King had like about 20 thousandths of an inch of relief in here. And B.B.'s response was specifically that he wanted to fight the guitar a little bit. Okay, that's fine. You know, if you want to fight the guitar, give yourself some relief. But I'll warn you that on an acoustic guitar like a Martin, you're going to have problems with buzzes up here. You're going to have a very high saddle up here in order to clear, so that when you're fretting down in this valley down in here, that the string can clear this hump. Okay, so this string's got tons of clearance right now. It's got a pretty low action on it. I learned this one time by, I was at this jam session, a weekend-long jam session, and a friend of mine brought me a guitar. It was a Gallagher. I can't remember if it was a Gallagher or a Mossman, but it was not a Martin, but I think it was a Gallagher. And he said, yeah, it needs a neck reset. He said, the action is really high, but it still buzzes all over the place. So I said, let me look at it. I checked it out, and the first thing I noticed was it had a lot of relief, like 20 thousandths of an inch of relief. Second thing I noticed was he was right. When you fret it up right here in the 9th and 10th frets, the string was laying flat on the fingerboard right up in here. And I thought, well, that needs a neck reset, you know. And this was 20 years ago before I knew all this stuff. I said, why don't you go ahead and let me take that relief out of the neck so it'll play better. The action will come down, and it'll play a little bit better, and it'll still buzz. But, you know, at least you can play it, you know, for the weekend. Okay, no problem, because, relief is something easy. So I took the relief out of the neck, knocked it down to about 0.010 of an inch, and much to my surprise and amazement, the action went down, but when you fret it up here, all of a sudden it was clearing these upper frets. And all of a sudden, he didn't have any buzzes anymore. So he had a lower action, flatter neck, in order, flatter neck, lower action, and better string clearance up here. No buzzes at all. And the guitar played so much better, obviously, because the action was lower. We ended up actually putting a taller saddle in it, and no neck reset was needed. So that's when I started really studying the phenomena of neck relief on an acoustic guitar. And I set out and I measured everything. So I got a guitar like this that I could adjust. I adjusted the saddle, so I kept the same action, the same 12th fret action, and the only thing I varied was the neck relief. So as I took the relief out, gave it more relief, the action came up, and I put a different saddle in there to get the action back where it was, and I measured every single fret. And I fretted this note, and I measured the next fret clearance, like that. So I'm fretting this note, how much clearance at this fret? Fret this note, how much clearance at this one? I measured every single note on that guitar with different saddles. I put all this, analyzed the data, and it was very, very obvious. It's on my website. It's very obvious that when you have a flat neck, the same action, flat neck, you get more fret clearance. And especially as you get up into this region here. So I demonstrated numerically that is how it works. So you don't want neck relief. The only reason that you really need neck relief at all, reasons, number one, you want to fight the guitar. Number two, you want to make sure there's a little bit of relief so that you don't end up with the back bow situation. However, you know what? If you play with a capo on the 2nd or 4th frets, you could actually live with a back bow situation because you're up here in this region, and then the strings are going to come off of that bow and actually have more clearances to go up the neck. So, a back bow is not the kiss of death, necessarily. This is especially true on things like mandolins, where you play in the middle of the neck a whole lot. At a different festival, a couple years later, I had a friend come up to me with a Gibson F5L, which was the reissue of the Lore, but it's a Gibson. It's top of the line Gibson mandolin, and it was his dad's mandolin. And he comes up to me at about 1 o'clock in the morning and says, "Yeah, I think I'm going to sell this mandolin. It just doesn't play right. It doesn't sound good." I said, "Let me look at it." So I took a look at it, checked the relief, and he had a little bit of relief in there. And on the mandolin especially, you're playing in the middle of the neck, and Dave Harvey, who's the head of mandolins at Gibson, later showed me just how little relief a mandolin can really have. But back then, 15, 20 years ago, I just knew that it'd be better with less relief, I said, "Let me adjust your relief, okay?" He says, "All right, go ahead." I didn't have any tools with me then, so I went out to the truck and got my mechanic tools, I got what? I got a nut driver, and I got the right nut, and so it was a little tricky, At 1 o'clock in the morning, and I got in there and took a little bit of relief out of his neck, flattened his neck out. I handed him the mandolin back. He chops on it. He goes, "I'll be back." Off he goes. I went to bed. 6 in the morning, I'm up. Here he comes. Mark, just walking in the door. I said, are you coming back from breakfast or what? He said, "I've been out all night playing." He said, you transformed this mandolin. I'm never going to sell it now. So he came in at 1 o'clock in the morning, was tired, decided he couldn't play the mandolin anymore, I made a truss rod adjustment. All I did. And it changed that mandolin so much that he went out and played from 1 in the morning to 6 in the morning, another 5 hours, and fell in love with the mandolin. Then he went home and played with his band, and his band honestly thought he had gotten a new mandolin because it sounded so much better. A tighter truss rod like that will enhance the highs and the bark of an instrument. So, another reason you might not want relief is because there is a sweet spot in this neck where the tension on the neck will give it a little bit more bass, and you might like that. You might like that enough to want to fight the guitar for it. I don't. Now, for me, playability is number one, absolutely number one, and I will get the sound somewhere else. So if I want more bass from the guitar, I'll get it from someplace else. I'll get it from the bridge pins, the strings, the scalloping, the back braces, somewhere else. But I also know that a trebly, mid-rangey instrument will cut. And so that's why his band members thought he had a new mandolin, because with the lessened relief, put more tension on that, changed the tension on the neck, made that mandolin snappier, brighter, made it a lot easier for him to play, no buzzes, and transform that mandolin. So, neck relief, that's why I don't like neck relief. And I will put a guitar down to 4/1000ths of an inch, which is like almost nothing, Mandolins, when Dave Harvey showed me how flat mandolin necks can go, I went the next step from where I was going. And on a mandolin, I'll typically measure the 2 middle strings, even the A string, work your way across here and get that A string to where it's just barely. And golly, that mandolin will play good. Now, some mandolins do respond, some guitars do respond better with just a little more relief. You can tweak it around a little bit, play the instrument, and some instruments do sound significantly better with a little less relief, or a little more relief, or whatever. So, but you're still within the parameters of not much relief. It's still very playable. Sometimes the neck feel will let you get away with a little more relief, or whatever. So it's not an ironclad rule, but I guarantee you the playability, I always want less relief. Always. On everything. So that's relief.